Hello students, we'll be starting with a new chapter today. The name of the chapter is Photosynthesis in Higher Plants, and so what we are going to study in this chapter is, first we'll be discussing about what is the content of the chapter. We'll understand the chapter in a form of a summary, and then we'll go in details. So basically aji class to ami just concept to buzi pam. So just starting with the chapter. So the name of the chapter is Photosynthesis in Higher Plants. Aur jeti ami photosynthesis boli ko, first what is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is nothing but a process in which the green plants prepare food. Etu eta definitions ke ami horu pora porhi ahisu, right? Tare details kini ami etu chapter complete korim. So whenever we talk about photosynthesis, no, photosynthesis could be depicted by such a reaction. So what we can say, the photosynthesis is nothing but a reaction. Chemical reaction, a biochemical reaction. Again, I mean reaction boli kole, the another question that comes to our mind is, the question that is asked is, the photosynthesis is a reaction hoy, kenuka type of reaction hoy. Kenuka type of reactions mane, we have to choose between the words oxidative reduction, or is it a reductive reaction, or photosynthesis is an example of a redox reaction. Ekhini bostu janibo lagibo. Tar uporot again we have another two words that is called as endergonic or exergonic reaction. So we'll be starting with this. So obviously photosynthesis is a reaction. What type of a reaction it is? Anabolic ne catabolic. And what is the difference between anabolic and catabolic? At least from chemistry point of view, we have an idea. In a very simpler meaning, what we understand is jikono eta reaction or jedi kiba eta bostu form kore, tel tak ami ki boli kau anabolic. Ar jedi reaction to it starts with breaking of something, then it's called as a catabolic reaction. And we know in photosynthesis food gets formed, and a forming reaction is obviously called as a anabolic reaction. So the first thing that we'll be writing is, or we'll be selecting is, it's an example of an anabolic reaction. Next point is what type of a reaction it is. We will see later that it is an example of a redox reaction where oxidation hoy or reduction hoy. So together with that, a question ahe, the photosynthesis on oxidation kune undergo kore or reduction kune undergo kore. We'll be studying about that later. Apart from that, we have two more words that is called as endergonic and exergonic. Ei duta words kihor logot related. It is related with ATP formation or ATP consumption, right? So jikono eta reaction or jedi ATP form korise, that type of a reaction would be called as an exergonic reaction. Or jedi jikono eta reaction or ATP loi pelai reaction to agbarise, that would be called as an endergonic reaction. And photosynthesis, we will see that it is an example of an endergonic reaction. Keneke endergonic ATP coat utilize korise, keneke reaction to agbarise. As we go on in the chapter, we'll come to know about it. As of now, these three are the words that we know. So what we have learned is, it is a reaction, it's an anabolic reaction, it is a redox reaction, and it's an example of endergonic reaction. So photosynthesis that ami porhu no, we come across another word that you all know is respiration. So just to mention over here, respiration is an example of an exergonic reaction and photosynthesis is an example of an endergonic reaction. Okay, I think this is clear. Coming to this reaction, so etu eta reaction jod niki oxidation hoy ase or reduction hoy ase. Eta the next thing that is asked is, a reaction tot car oxidation hoy ase, car reduction hoy ase. So we'll see that. So in this case, reduction, and by the word reduction we understand that addition of hydrogen is called as reduction. And who undergoes oxidation is water undergoes oxidation. right? So oxidation হৈ আছে, reduction হৈ আছে. Who undergoes oxidation? Carbon dioxide undergoes reduction. What does it form? It undergoes reduction to form glucose, and water molecule gets oxidized to form oxygen, because we know in photosynthesis it is not something like this that অকল food prepare hoy, right? Green plants, obviously they will be preparing food, but we see the evolution of oxygen also. So oxygen kune evolve kore, at least from the reaction we understood. So now we can understand the oxygen kune form kore. It is from the water. Later we'll be studying about something called as photolysis of water. Water molecule to bhangi koi pile tapra ki form kore oxygen. So that is all in details we'll be studying. Next, so what we have studied, the first point, it is nothing but a reaction. And what type of a reaction is it? We had an idea. The next is, the reaction is it a single step reaction or it is a two-step reaction? Actually, we can say it is a two-stepped reaction, right? So photosynthesis reaction to kiman step out hoy? Two steps out hoy. We are just understanding the concept of the chapter today, so we are not going in details. Bostu to khali buji pale hol, ha? Duta step out reaction to hoy, and what are the two steps? Light reaction and dark reaction, right? So it is a reaction, is a two-step reaction, light reaction or dark reaction. The third point is the photosynthesis coat hoy. Where does this reaction occur? Or we can use a word called as reaction hoy, thik ase, duta step to hoy, hetu thike ase, kintu photosynthesis coat hoy. As of now, we cannot be saying the photosynthesis of plants or hoy. Obviously plants or hoy, but apart from plants also we have certain examples we'll study. Next, plants boli kole, plant have different parts. Now you cannot be saying the photosynthesis leaves out hoy. When we are talking about a leaf, obviously photosynthesis leaf ote hoy, but when we are talking about a leaf comprises of key cells. Oh no, current anatomy we know. Just a second. So photosynthesis coat hoy. Leaf or coat hoy cells, and we have a name for the cells. Have you heard this word called as mesophyll cell? So photosynthesis coat hoy, photosynthesis mesophyll cell hoy. You have to have a concept of mesophyll cell also. What is a mesophyll cell? Details about this word is something that we are going to teach during a chapter called as anatomy. Anatomy details are for him. As of now, just to understand what is mesophyll, eta leaf, jetia ami, if you want to study the anatomy, just a second. Leafor jetia tumi anatomy koriba, but TS eta koriba. TS korila, what you will see is a rough idea. I'm not here to teach anatomy now, but you should understand. So leaf eta jetia TS korim, ami eta will come across something called as upper epidermis. This would be called as lower epidermis. Our epidermis, we have an idea. The epidermis ki hoy? Epidermis. Aru a major jiman bilak cells, no? A cells kini kami ki buli ko? Mesophyll. So we have an idea that photosynthesis coat hoy, mesophyll cells bilakot hoy, and by the word mesophyll we are understanding this portion, right? Obviously it's not as simple as we are learning it now. Details ami anatomy korim, right? Again, yatkeo besi we have to be precise. So we are using a word called as mesophyll cell, and when we talk about a plant cell, mesophyll কি হয় এটা plant cell আৰু plant cellৰ আমাৰ এটা idea আছে ন obviously cell wall থাকিব cell membrane থাকিব আৰু ইয়াতে কি থাকিব cytoplasm protoplasm the different organelles etc so again যেহেতু precisely জানিব লাগিব first to leafot photosynthesis হৈছে that's half of the information where are the leaves in the mesophyll cell the next question that arises is where in the cell because whenever we talk about a plant cell it has parts right and what the parts of the cell when we talk about parts of a cell has a boundary especially in plant cell boundary kekhon thake dukhon thake the cell wall thake cell membrane thake inside or inner to the cell membrane tat ki thakibo protoplasm thakibo tar pisot ki thakibo we see a component called as cytoplasm ar bahut bilak organelles thake so if the question is asked where precisely in the mesophyll cell photosynthesis hoise so we have to know that in this cell we have a organelle called as chloroplast. So ultimately what we can sum it down is photosynthesis code hoy photosynthesis mesophyll cells ot hoy mesophyll cell or code hoy mesophyll cell or chloroplast ot hoy is the point clear so So it occurs in the chloroplast. Another point that we have studied is photosynthesis is a reaction. So কি আছে light reaction ও আছে dark reaction ও আছে so we understand that দুইটা reaction কোট হবো chloroplast so the next question is light reaction কোট হয় আৰু dark reaction কোট হয় photosynthesis বুলি কলে এটা reaction হয় reaction to কেটা step দুটা step light reaction and dark reaction what is the site of photosynthesis it occurs in the chloroplast now to be precise where exactly in the chloroplast to give that answer you should have an idea about the chloroplast also details about the chloroplast we'll be studying in something called as cell the unit of life but to have an idea again we should know about the chloroplast so what is the chloroplast the chloroplast is nothing but a cell organelle right and how does it look to have a rough diagram it is something like this it's a double membrane cell organelle jor outer membrane inner membrane right here we have sac like structures right and certain structures like this also right this is called as thylakoid. This part would be called as stroma. This part lamellae, etc. So these are certain parts of the chloroplast. So we know photosynthesis occurs in this cell organelle called as chloroplast, but exactly kunkhini jagat where in the chloroplast is something that we have to study. Now, okay, so yate next question as we were asking light reaction kot hobo chloroplast or bhitor dark reaction kot hobo chloroplast or bhitor kintu chloroplast ot ki ase membranes u ase ar tar bhitoror kisuman structures ase jeneke thylakoid ase grana ase etc. So we will study that light reaction always occur in the thylakoid and dark reaction occurs in the stroma. Thylakoid ki hoy a sac like structures junlak dekhiso single ke ase these are called as thylakoid are the inside portion the proteinaceous gel that is called as a stroma so photosynthesis kot hoy inside the chloroplast light reaction kot hoy thylakoid or dark reaction kot hoy stroma you can see another structure that is called as grana what is grana jetia thylakoid bilak okol single ke thake they are called as thylakoid ar jetia etar upor eta stack বা piled up হৈ থাকে, this type of a structure এটাৰ ওপৰত এটাকে থাকে, that collection would be called as grana. So basically we understand যে stroma dark reaction হয়, thylakoid light reaction হয়, itu eta bostu that everyone will know about it. But the question that sometimes being asked is grana kinukwa dhornor reaction hobo. Grana ki hoy nothing but a stack of thylakoid. So obviously granite is a place where the light reaction will occur. Let's not go into the grana part now. We'll discuss it later. As of now, I think it's clear. Talking about photosynthesis, it's a reaction consisting of two steps, light reaction and dark reaction. Where does it occur? In the chloroplast. Where exactly in the chloroplast? Light reaction occurs in the thylakoid and dark reaction occurs in the stroma. Right? Okay. Now let's go to the next question. Light reaction ক'ত হয় বুলি কৈছিলো? Thylakoid. Right? Now the question is, why in the thylakoid? Thylakoid কিয় হয়? Stromat কিয় নহয়? বা grana বুলি আছিলে, but different organelles, different components of chloroplast asile. So we need to understand the why in the thylakoid. Thylakoid light reaction kiyo hoy. To understand that, first to have an idea, light reaction mane ki? Je light lobo no? Light kune lobo? Plants lobo. It a plants light low play photosynthesis kore. That information is obviously not sufficient. So you need to understand light lua mane ki. It is not like this that they will be having certain specific organelles or specific parts through which they can trap in the light. For example, amar janeke hat sat ase hatere janeke bostu lo, obviously plants will not have that. So light lua mane ki hoy ba light kune loy, right? Light lua mane someone will be absorbing the light, right? So light is taken in by the plants, and by this what we understand, that is light is taken by the something called as pigments, or to be precise, it is called as photosynthetic pigments. So photosynthesis reaction to light lole hai photosynthesis arambho hobo. So for that, for light kunubai lobo lagibo, light kune lobo, light pigments bilake lobo. And once what we have said, light reaction code hoy thylakoid. So we understand thylakoid light reaction kiho karne hoy, because the pigments are present in the thylakoid. I think the concept is clear now, right? So light is taken in by the pigments. A pigments bilak kot ase thylakoid, and that is the reason why light reaction occurs in the thylakoid. Again, there is another point. When we talk about thylakoid, thylakoid itself is a double membraned organelle. First, what we have seen the chloroplast. If you remember, then we have talked about single stacks. These were called as thylakoid. Talking about the individual thylakoid, it looks something like this. Whenever we talk about the organelle will have the matrix and you have the inner portion, right? So you have this portion that would be called as the lumen. Bhitoror khinik ami ki buli ko lumen buli ko, ar ekhinik ami ki buli ko membrane. Right? So jikunu eta organelle membranous portion to thakibo ar bhitor portion to thakibo. Bhitor portion to kisumanok ami matrix ko, kisumanor bhitor portion to ami lumen ko. So thylakoid or bhitor portion to ki buli ko lumen. Now coming to that, we said that the pigments are present in the thylakoid, and that's the reason why the light reaction occurs in the thylakoid. But the next question that follows is, pigments bilak thylakoid or kot ase, right? Pigments ase understood, kintu kot ase? Pigments bilak khodai outer membrane of thylakoid also. So as we are understanding this chapter, let's, as I said it before, Zami concept to clear correct, that's our details of Zam. Just to revise it again, we have been saying about a reaction called as photosynthesis. Kiman step reaction, two-step reaction, light reaction, dark reaction. Kot hoy, chloroplast hoy, light reaction kot hoy, thylakoid hoy. Thylakoid kyo hoy? Because the pigments are present, and these pigments are nothing but photosynthetic pigments, and they would be absorbing the sunlight, right? So outer membrane of the thylakoid is somewhere where the light reaction occurs, because the pigments are present in the outer membrane of the thylakoid. Another question that are followed is, when we are talking about photosynthetic pigments, pigments a light loy. এটা single pigment a light লৈ পেলাই photosynthesis কৰে নে বহুত pigments a light লৈ পেলাই photosynthesis কৰে? We will study in this chapter and see that it is not a single molecule or it's not a single pigment that is responsible for taking in light and doing photosynthesis. Instead, a group of pigments will take in light our photosynthesis process to আৰম্ভ কৰিব, right? So pigments বুলি ক'লে আমাৰ কি থাকে যে the next question, a pigments bilak single ne groups. So we will see that photosynthetic pigments bilak ko thakibo thylakoid thakibo keneke arrange hoy thakibo groups ot. Next point, the photosynthetic pigments bilak arrange keneke hoy thakibo groups ot arrange hoy thakibo. The next question, kiman the groups ot single group ne double group? These pigments that are associated or that are responsible for taking in the light lobo tapsot process to arambho koribo kune lobo pigments bilak keneke arrange hoy thakibo? Obviously in groups. The next question, je kiman groups ot assemble hoy thakibo? Duta group ot. Just to have an idea, so we can talk about thylakoid. Light reaction code has a thylakoid. Thylakoid ki hoy? A sac-like structure that is present in the chloroplast. Yate ki ase? Pigments ase. Pigments bilak bhitor thakibo ne membrane thakibo? Membrane thakibo, right? Kuntu membrane, inner membrane ne outer membrane? Outer membrane. Pigments bilak kiman ta groups are arranged hoy thakibo? It could be 1 and it could be 2. Is the concept clear? Etu ki hoy? Photosynthetic pigment or group. Or etu hobo photosynthetic pigment or group, right? And this group, they will be having a name to it. A group to eta naam thakibo, that would be called as right? So up till here, we have learned that the light reaction of photosynthesis occurs in a thylakoid. In a thylakoid, you have this inner portion called as lumen, and this portion is called as the membrane portion or the boundary, right? So pigments are present. That's the reason why light reaction occurs in the thylakoid. Pigments are arranged in groups, and into how many groups are the photosynthetic pigments arranged themselves? They arrange themselves into 2 groups, and what are the 2 groups called as? They are called as photosystem 1 and the photosystem 2, right? Okay, so photosynthesis, we have 2 types of reaction. We have the light reaction and we have the dark reaction, right? Photosynthesis kot hoy, chloroplast hoy. Light reaction kot hoy? Light reaction first to thylakoid hoy. Dark reaction kot hoy? Stromat hoy. Light reaction, duta pigment group ase. We have photosystem 1 and we have photosystem 2. So what is PS1 and PS2? PS1 and PS2 are two groups of photosynthetic pigments. A pigment bilakor kaam ki, they will be taking in the light and then they will be starting with the process of photosynthesis. Right? I think the concept is clear. Now another thing is, whenever we are talking about PS1 or PS2, we understand that we are talking about a group. Right? Just to, obviously they are not arranged in such a way that I am drawing. Just to understand the concept, let's draw it like this. And okay, so again, this is another group. Group of what? Photosynthetic pigments, right? And when we are talking about group, no, group to a light lobo or photosynthesis arambho koribo. And I think one thing that you all know is, jetia the group activity amak assign kore, no, what we do is we always have an important member in a group of whom we choose as a leader. So even if you are talking about a group activity, they will also have a leader who is supposed to be the most important member of the group. And let's not use the word leader over here. Instead, we have a word called as a reaction center. Etu eta group, taru eta important member thakibo, tak ami ki buli kom? Reaction center. Right? I am repeating it again, that obviously the pigments are not arranged in the way that I am drawing. The diagram is just to understand. So while we are studying photosynthesis, we come across words like light reaction, dark reaction, etc. We talk about PS1, PS2. Another words that we study is something called as reaction center of PS1, reaction center of PS2, etc. Instead of by hearting. So let's understand what a reaction center is. So we have a group of photosynthetic pigments, and whenever we talk about the word photosynthetic pigments, we understand what is the function of these pigments is they will be always taking in light, right? Light lole hai photosynthesis hobo. So gute group to a light lobo, a group to duta group ase, duita group ote eta important member ase. Ba sobotse important eta pigment ase. Hey, important pigments puli nokoi. What we are giving a word is, or what we are using a word is called as a reaction center. So question kene kya hai? Je PS1 or reaction center kune form kore, or PS2 reaction center kune form kore. As of now, talking about this reaction center, no, iman bilak pigments ase. Tar eta khe ami reaction center koisu, right? Now the next point is reaction center kune form koribo. Photosynthetic pigments ot ami janu je eta pigment na thake, group of pigments thake, no, a group of pigments or bhitorot reaction center kune form koribo. To understand that, we need to have certain idea about photosynthetic pigments. So just a moment. So photosynthetic pigments ki bostu se junbilak pigments they will be trapping in the light and will do photosynthesis, right? So whenever we are talking about the pigments that are involved in photosynthesis, obviously not a single pigment, but we have how many types? 3 types. Photosynthetic pigments are of 3 types. Kiki. The first one is something that everyone knows about it. Chlorophyll. Next is something called as phycobilins. So at a group of pigments take, hey pigments or group of ki thakibo? Chlorophyll aru carotenoids thakibo. Higher plants bilakor photosynthetic pigment or group of ki thakibo? Chlorophyll thakibo aru carotenoids thakibo aru phycobilenes or presence of phycobilenes as a photosynthetic pigment is a characteristic of lower organisms like, just a second. Okay, phycobilenes as photosynthetic pigments car thakibo, red algae thakibo, right? Blue green algae, which is also called as cyanobacteria, right? We'll be having cryptomonads. Cryptomonads ki a type of algae, or we can just use the word phytoplankton. Phytoplankton, zooplankton, duta word ase no? Very small microscopic plant-like organisms is called as a phytoplankton. Very small microscopic animal-like organism is called as a zooplankton. So what we have seen is light is taken in by the photosynthetic pigments, and photosynthetic pigments are of 3 types. Since the chapter what we are discussing is photosynthesis in higher plants, so we are talking more about this one. Coming back again, photosynthetic pigments bilak ki keneke thake? Groups thake. So A2 group ki thakibo, chlorophyll thakibo, aru ki thakibo, carotenoids thakibo, right? Chlorophyll aru carotenoids gutekhini group kori pele eta group form koribo, eta group of PS1 buli kom, eta group of PS2 buli kom. One more information about chlorophyll is that you have to know that around 9 types ase, right? Out of this jeneke dhora chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, chlorophyll C, chlorophyll D, etc., etc. So according to a scientist, what he has discussed is, he has said that chlorophyll is of 9 types. Out of this 9 types, chlorophyll A is called as the universal pigment. Right? So photosynthesis of pigments bilake light loy, kun bilak pigments e light or photosynthetic pigments e loy. Photosynthetic pigments buli kole okol chlorophyll nohoy. Right? Eta group of pigments thake, group tut kun thakibo, chlorophyll thakibo, tar logot carotenoid bula pigments kiniu thakibo. Talking about chlorophyll, there are so many types of chlorophyll. So whenever we talk about, suppose we are talking about the first group called as PS1, PS1 or बहुत bilak pigments thakibo, tar bhitor kisuman chlorophyll B hobo, kisuman chlorophyll C hobo, kisuman carotenoids hobo, aru eta sobotse important member hobo. And this would be nothing but chlorophyll A. Aru ekhini aru ekhini kune form koribo? Other types of chlorophyll and carotenoids. Later we will study that carotenoids are of 2 types, carotene aru xanthophyll. We'll study that later. I think it's clear. So photosynthesis ki koi light loy, kune loy pigments e, pigments bila keneke arrange hoise in the form of a group. In this group we have chlorophyll molecules, we have other types of chlorophyll like B, C, D, and also we have carotenoids. And in this entire group of pigment, we have one important pigment that is called as chlorophyll A, that would be considered as the reaction center. So groups keta asile, photosynthetic pigments or group keta? Photosynthetic pigments or group duta asile, ki asile? PS1 and PS2, right? PS1 or ki thakibo? PS1 or reaction center thakibo? PS2 ru ki thakibo? Reaction center thakibo. Right? PS1 or reaction center kune form koribo? Obviously chlorophyll A, aru yahoteu kune form koribo? Chlorophyll A, but we come across something called as this and this. As far as 700 and 680 is concerned, what we are talking about is kuntu wavelength of light loise thik ase pisot ami jeta photosynthetic requirements for him, then we'll study the light buli kwa loge loge we have, I mean, light can be divided into 3 categories. Like we have UV light, we have something called as visible light, and we have infrared light. For plants have light loi pelai photosynthesis kore. In general, what we are talking about is the visible light. Our visible light by light puli kole, it is made up of wavelengths. A visible light or wavelength kiman 400 to 700. So, ebilak, what does it say? It talks about the chlorophyll A kuntu wavelength of light absorb kori pelai photosynthesis process to aramba korise. As far as all this is concerned, photosynthetic requirements are, we'll talk about that in details. So today what we are basically doing is just we are trying to get the concept of the chapter, right, instead of going in details. So I think up till now we have just had an idea. We are not blank now, right? So ami ki bujilo light reaction dark reaction hoy, light reaction kot hoy thylakoid hoy kio hoy karon pigments bilak ase, pigments bilak keneke ase, groups ot ase, kot ase, outer membrane ot ase, right? Keita groups, duta group ase. What are the names of the group? It is called as PS1 and PS2, and each group will have an important member, and that will be called as a reaction center. So PS1 is a group of photosynthetic pigment that will have a reaction center, and who will form the reaction center? Chlorophyll A700. PS2 is also a group of photosynthetic pigment that also has a reaction center. Who forms the reaction center? Obviously chlorophyll A. It will be absorbing 680 wavelength of light to start the process, and so the reaction center has been named as chlorophyll A680, right? Okay, we'll move to the next part now. Okay. So to know something about light reaction, just to have understand the summary of this, light reaction first point kot hoy thylakoid dot. Where is the thylakoid present? Inside the chloroplast, right? Thylakoid kot ase chloroplast. Light reaction of light কোনে লয়? photosynthetic pigments বিলাকে লয়, right? So photosynthetic pigments কেনেকে আছে? দুটা গ্ৰুপছত আছে, আৰু দুটা গ্ৰুপছৰ নাম কি? PS1 PS2, right? So light reaction thylakoidot কিহৰ কাৰণে হয়? Because the pigments are present in the thylakoid. Now we will see what exactly happens during light reaction. Light reaction of pigments be like a light lobo, no? So we have the pigments. Suppose we have the reaction center, and by now we understand that it is nothing but who forms the reaction center? Obviously chlorophyll A. Baki bilak ki hoy? Other types of chlorophyll plus carotenoids, and this would be called as so group to ki korise? So both say important member ase aru baki kita help kore. Help kora kita ki boli koise? Accessory pigment, aru chlorophyll A ki boli koise? Essential pigment, right? Essential pigment. It is also called as ki it forms the reaction center. So this is a group of photosynthetic pigments. Yate ki hobo? Light poribo. light sunlight poribo sunlight pori pelai ultimately reaction to start hobo so we will see what exactly happens in during light reaction not ki hoy So light reaction bully kole what we understand that the pigments would be taking in light. What exactly happens during light reaction is transfer of light energy, right? Just a second. So transfer of light energy, and by the word transfer, what we understand is first, jeta sunlight poribo, we have the first point that we understand is in this photosynthetic group, so what's the important molecule kuntu? Chlorophyll A or reaction center, right? So light to ultimately chlorophyll A lobo lagibo, tetiahe photosynthesis arambho koribo, but the process is chlorophyll A will never take the light directly. Right? So chlorophyll A light to directly noloi. So pothomote light kune loi, light hodai accessory pigments bilake loi. So this light, okay. So A light to first ki hobo, je first accessory pigments bilakot ahibo. Right? Tahator mazot distribute koribo. Atar pisot he chlorophyll A le ahi jabo. Right? So photosynthesis light lobo so what's the important molecule ki hoy chlorophyll light low pelai photosynthesis kore but the question is chlorophyll A to be precise directly sunlight absorb kore ne it is through transfer of light energy that it accepts the light obviously it's because of transfer it works in the same way jeneke agor TV bilakot ki asile antenna asile no so satellite antenna diye antenna monitor ok diya so teneke transfer of signals hoisile thik teneke yate photosynthesis কি হয় লাইট এনার্জি টু ট্রান্সফার হয় ডাইরেক্টলি লাইট কেতিয়াও ক্লোরোফিল এ নপৰে কিহৰ কাৰণে নপৰে উইল বি স্টাডিং সামথিং কল্ড এজ সোলাৰাইজেশন ক্লোরোফিল ইন সিম্পল ল্যাঙ্গুৱেজ বেসিক্যালি লাইট পৰিলে ক্লোরোফিল এ মলিকিউলটো ভাঙি যাব আৰু যদি ভাঙি যায় তেতিয়াহলে ফটোসিনথেসিস আৰম্ভ নহব সেই কাৰণে জাস্ট টু প্ৰটেক্ট দেম নো এইবিলাক এসেসৰি পিগমেন্টস লেটাৰ উই উইল স্টাডি তাহাঁতক প্ৰটেক্টিভ পিগমেন্টস বুলিও কৈছে কিছুমান So light to প্ৰথমতে তাহাঁতে লব এনার্জি টু অকমান ডিস্ট্রিবিউট কৰিব তাৰ পিছতহে ক্লোরোফিল এ The next is once chlorophyll A receives light, what will happen? It will eject electrons. Right? So what we understood, sunlight lole, light kune lole, accessory pigments bilake, accessory pigments e kak transfer korile, reaction center on. Reaction center after accepting the light, it gets excited and what it ejects is, it ejects a pair of electrons. Pair ahise single electron ahise ne duta electron ekelege ahise ebu details ami jeti aru precise ba details of class to korim we will understand as of now simply reaction center e light loar pisot ki hoy excited hoi play ki kore electron to ulai dia right next is light reaction kot hoi ase light reaction chloroplast hoi ase so electrons kot ulai ase electrons bilako ক্লোরোপ্লাস্টৰ ভিতৰতে ওলাই আছে সো সেই বস্তুটো সদায় মনত ৰাখিবা এটো নহয় যে লাইট ৰিঅ্যাকশনটো বাহিৰত ওলাই হৈ আছে দেই ক্লোরোপ্লাস্টতে যেটো ফটোসিনথেসিস হৈ আছে তো লাইট ৰিঅ্যাকশনৰ যিমান বিলাক কথা কৈ আছে আমি এটো PS1 PS2 সব বস্তু ক্লোরোপ্লাস্টৰ ভিতৰতে আছে থাইলেকয়েডতে হৈছে এই ইলেক্ট্ৰনছ বিলাক কৰ পৰা ওলাইছে আকৌ যদি ইফ ইউ হ্যাভ জাস্ট ফৰগটেন এটো থাইলেকয়েডত কি আছিল গ্ৰুপস of pigments asile PS1 PS2 বুলি তাৰ ভিতৰত এটা সবতছে ইম্পৰ্টেন্ট মেম্বাৰ আছিল দুইটা গ্ৰুপৰ তাত লাইট টু পোৱাৰ পিছত তাহাতে কি কৰিব ইলেক্ট্ৰন উলাই দিব ইহতেও কি কৰিব ইলেক্ট্ৰন উলাই দিব we'll talk about that later to have an idea chlorophyll a light low play electrons ulai যায় next is এই ইলেক্ট্ৰনটো কলে যাব হিটো ফ্ৰিলি ঘুৰি ফুৰিব নোৱাৰে ন it has ইলেক্ট্ৰন যাবলৈ এটা ৰাস্তা লাগিব তাৰ দুটা পাথৱে আছে দুটা ৰাস্তা আছে ইলেক্ট্ৰনটো যাবলৈ either it will go through the center of the electron, right? Or it will go through the center of the electron. So, either it will go through the center of the electron or it will go through the center of the electron. So, it will go through the center of the electron. Right? So, this is the electron to zabole. pathway. So coming back to this, light has been accepted by the chlorophyll, photosynthetic pigments. Photosynthetic pigments have transferred the light to chlorophyll A. Chlorophyll A, once it got excited, it has ejected electrons, and this electrons that has come out would be following two pathways. It has a choice, either it will go or undergo the cyclic pathway or it will undergo the non-cyclic. And as the name suggests, cyclic pathway mane ki jor pra ulaise hi ghuri ghuri ako hi yate humabo, aru নহলে non-cyclic hi junto reaction center pra ulaise he reaction to pra tat nuhumai pele beleg eta jegale jabo. Ekhin loke concept to clear? Okay. এতিয়া আমি কি লিখি আছিলো? Light reaction. Light reactionত কি হব? PS1, PS2, PS1 or pro কি হব? Chlorophyll A 700 আর ইয়ার reaction center to কি? Chlorophyll A 680. তাহাতে light যেতিয়া পাবো কি কৰিব? Ejection উলাই দিব, sorry, electrons উলাই দিব আৰু ইহঁতেও কি কৰিব? Electrons উলাই দিব. So ইয়াতে question আহে, what is the first step of photosynthesis? পিছত আমি এইবিলাক details নোটছত লিখিম. First step of photosynthesis is coming out of the electrons. By the reaction center gets excited and it will eject out a pair of electrons. So first step of photosynthesis ki hoy? Electrons ulwa to, that is the starting point. Jedi electrons nulai tetale photosynthesis process to arambho hoy nohoy, right? Next, so cyclic jedi hoy, electron to jedi hi আকৌ যদি ঘুৰি যায় তাক আমি কি বুলি কম? Cyclic. আৰু ইলেক্ট্ৰনটো এইটো ৰিয়াকশন চেণ্টাৰৰ পৰা ওলাই পেলাই যদি বেলেগত যায় তাক আমি কি বুলি কম? নন সাইক্লিক. সো লাইট ৰিয়াকশন কৰি আছো. লাইট ৰিয়াকশনত আমি কি চালো যে ইলেক্ট্ৰনছ ওলাব. ইলেক্ট্ৰনছৰ দুটা পাথৱেজ আছে. পাথৱেজ বিলাকৰ এটা নাম আছে So we are just trying to understand light reaction. Ekdam simple language of light reaction to buzi aso. Light reaction at ki hoy? Electrons ulai jay. Kune electrons ulai diye chlorophyll A reaction center e. Electrons gita kole jabo. Tahator duta rasta ase. Either cyclic pathway jabo ba non-cyclic pathway jabo. Cyclic pathway boli word to use no kori pela ami ki likhiso? Cyclic photophosphorylation aru non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Right? It is cyclic in this word, no? Cyclic photophosphorylation or non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Or cyclic or non-cyclic is something that we have understood. We need to understand the word called as phosphorylation, right? So phosphorylation mane ki? Cyclic to baru buzi palu. Phosphorylation mane ki? In other way round, what we can remember? So phosphorylation is nothing but ATP formation. So we understand যে যেতিয়া photosynthesis light reaction hobo electrons bilak eta specific pathway jabo pare cyclic jabo নহলে noncyclic jabo jetia electron to reaction center opra ulai pelai hi jedi ako humai goise tak ami ki buli kom cyclic buli kom a cyclic or logot ki ase photophosphorylation ta mane ei tahantor journey to tahate ki form koribo ATP form koribo ঠিক তেনেকে আকৌ যদি ৰিঅ্যাকশন সেন্টাৰৰ পৰা ইলেক্ট্ৰনটো ওলাই গৈ পেলাই হি বেলেগত যায় তাক আমি কি বুলি কম নন সাইক্লিক পাথৱে বুলি কম নন সাইক্লিক পাথৱে লগতো কি ওয়াৰ্ড ইউজ হৈ আছে ফটোফসফোৰাইলেশন তাৰমানে ইয়াতো তাহাঁতে কি ফৰ্ম কৰিব ATP. So in short, what we can say, jetia photosynthesis or light reaction hoy, reaction hole, reaction or karone, kiba kibi bostu form kore. So what we'll be using is a word called as products of a light reaction. Light reaction hole, key product form kore. And the first product that we have seen is, jetia light reaction sole, jetia le key form kore, ATP. The question is, light reaction to duta step out hoy. We are talking about cyclic pathway, we are talking about non-cyclic pathway. Tetia hole ATP code form koribo. ATP duita pathway te form koribo. Cyclic auto form koribo, non-cyclic. Together with that, jeta light reaction boli kom, ami pisot porhim je products ki form koribo, duta product form koribo, to be precise. ATP form koribo, aru NAD pH to form koribo. So aji ami class ki dekhilu je we have started with a light reaction and light reaction we have seen the formation of one product that is ATP. As far as this product is concerned, we'll be talking about that in the next class. So before winding up the class, aji jikhini bostu porhilu okoman summary wise what we can what we can say is what we have studied today, we have studied somewhat up till light reaction. Obviously after that we have much to study. We have to talk about dark reaction, keneke hoy, kot hoy, right? At types of factors or kotha patibo libo. Kino aji ki porhilu. First, what we came to know that photosynthesis ki hoy at a reaction hoy, right? It's a biochemical reaction. Details we'll write it in the notes. Kenukwan dhoroner reaction. It is a type of an anabolic reaction. We have used a word called as a redox reaction, and obviously it's an example of an endergonic reaction. Why is it endergonic? Because photosynthesis is a reaction jod neki ATP use kori pelai reaction to proceed koribo. So ATP consumption takes place, and so that's the reason why photosynthesis is considered as an endergonic reaction. That's the first point. Second point that we have discussed is where does it occur? It occurs inside a cell organelle that is called as a chloroplast. Where will you see the chloroplast? We have used a word called as mesophyll cell. Lifot mesophyll cell lake. Hey cell tour eta organelle chloroplast ote photosynthesis hoy. The third point that we have studied is chloroplast light reaction hoy, dark reaction hoy. Light reaction coat hoy. Where in the chloroplast? Dark reaction coat hoy. Dark reaction stroma part hoy. And light reaction coat hoy. Thylakoid hoy. The next point, thylakoidal light reaction kiyo hoy karon photosynthetic pigments bilak thylakoidot arrange hoy ase keneke arrange hoy ase groups ot arrange hoy ase keita groups ot arrange hoy ase duta groups ot arrange hoy ase what are the names of the two groups? They are called as photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. Ei duta group of photosynthetic pigment thylakoidor coat ase bhitorot ase ne membrane ot ase, obviously in the outer membrane of the thylakoidot ase. The next point is talking about the group. Group of ki ase kihor group? Photosynthetic pigments or group. Pigments or group buli kole okol chlorophyll thakibo ne carotenoids o thakibo. Higher plants or chlorophyll thake, carotenoids o thake. Ar chlorophyll buli kole there are 9 types. Universal chlorophyll kuntu chlorophyll A. So hey group 2 sobotse important member kune form koribo? Chlorophyll A form koribo, and that would be called as ki reaction center. So jehetu duta group ase PS1 and PS2 duita group ore duta reaction center thakibo, that would be called as reaction center of PS1 and reaction center of PS2. The next point what we have studied is photosynthetic pigments se ki koribo light lobo and the light reaction will start. What happens in light reaction? Transfer of light energy hoy. Chlorophyll A ba reaction center e directly sunlight to loi noloy. Prothomete accessory pigments bilake lobo tahate tahator light to tahator majot distribute korar pisot, what they will do is they will be giving transferring the light to the chlorophyll A molecule. Right? Once the chlorophyll A molecule gets the light, it gets excited and it will lead to the ejection of electrons. Once the electron comes out from the reaction center, it has two pathways to follow. Either it will undergo the cyclic pathway or it will undergo the non-cyclic pathway. And well, jetia cyclic pathway goi ase ba non-cyclic pathway goi ase, one product of photosynthesis or one product of light reaction that they are preparing is nothing but ATP, and so that's the reason why the reaction or the pathway is called as cyclic photophosphorylation, or it is called as non-cyclic photophosphorylation. Light reaction jetia hoy, teta light reaction or product form kore. Light reaction or product boli kole precisely we can talk about two products. One is called as ATP and the other is called as NADPH2. Today in the class we have studied up till the formation of ATP, and next is something that will be discussing in the next class. Thank you.